All right, so our Hangout is live, and we're gonna hang out here until we get a few more viewers and until we get closer to the 8 o'clock. I just wanted to make sure that the broadcast would be working. All right, so it's a little bit after 8, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. This is the Get Your Social Media Strategy Sorted in Less Than an Hour webinar. I am Sarah Eggers, and I am here today. I am playing co-host to the magnificent Brogan. Brogan, will you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, hi guys. Hope you're all having a fabulous day / night, depending where you are in the world right now. And like Sarah said, we're super excited to be here today. And I just wanted to do a quick little intro for those of you who don't know who I am. So my name's Brogan, and I'm a content strategist for determined, heart-centered, and creative entrepreneurs. So over the past 4 years, I've worked in communications and content strategy for a university research organization. And then at the start of this year, I decided that I wanted to start my own thing, wanted to start my own business. And so that's what I did. And I'm still working in the same kind of area because I absolutely love it so much. I've just changed my focus to take things completely online and work with entrepreneurs, which I absolutely love. So yeah, I can't wait for us to get started today because we've got a super epic webinar planned for you guys.
All right, so this is Sarah again, and I'm just going to give you a brief run through of what we're going to be covering. So we want you to be able to have social media strategies that work well with your business goals. So for example, let's say your business goal is you would like to make more sales. I know a lot of you, this is going to be what your goal is going to be. But when you have a big goal like that, you need to be able to break it down. So how would you get more sales? Well, one way to get more sales is first you need to get more people to buy. And to get more people to buy, you might need to have more people to get to your website. So for a social media strategy, you will want to use social media to increase your web traffic. So that's what this webinar will be about. Like I said, we're going to go through strategies. We're also going to go through a quick marketing crash course. I'll be leading those slides. But before we get too much further into the webinar, we just have a few quick questions for you. So one of our first questions, you can go ahead, there's a chat off to the side of this, or there's also a Q&A, you can pop those in there. We want to know what kind of company you have. So are you like me? Do you have a side hustle? Or are you a full-time entrepreneur? Or anything else in between. We just want to get a good grasp of who's here and who's listening to the webinar. So you guys can just drop those in the chat, and we'll just wait a few moments to be able to see, give you a chance to respond. Okay, great. It looks like we have entrepreneurs here. That's fantastic. And we'd love to get a grasp of how comfortable you are with social media. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you? 5 is, oh my gosh, you're such a pro at this. You don't even need this webinar. And 1 is, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. Help me, I'm about to cry. You know, sad face emoji. So let us know what you are. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be pretty good. Like we'll have some good middle ground. No one's too new, and there's no experts here just hanging around. So one of the things we're interested in is I want you to think of right now what's one big year-end goal that you have. If you want to drop it in the chat, you can, but I want you to keep this in mind throughout the webinar because I want you to be able to take that big goal, like we're more than halfway through the year, what do you want to accomplish by December, and how can you use social media to get there? So right now, I just want you to start taking some time to think about that big year-end goal. And then lastly, I just want to give you a quick warning. The number one problem that people run into when they're building social media marketing strategies is that they're overthinking it. Just like I showed in this other slide, when people think big, like I need more sales, and you look at yourself and you're like, how does Instagram get me more sales? You're thinking too big, you're overthinking it. You need to break it down into smaller steps and then figure out how social media fits in those smaller steps. So that's it. I'm just introing this right now. I'll be coming back again for the marketing crash course. Right now, I'm going to pass off to the pro, Brogan, and she's going to be talking about social media goals that matter.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so the kind of big question that we need to ask ourselves is, okay, so how do we actually set social media goals that matter? So what we need to do is start with the big picture. So we need to take a step back, and like Sarah showed in that slide at the front, we need to look at what our overall kind of big business goal is for the year. So let's say that your business goal has something to do with increasing sales, since that's the example that we've already talked about before. So maybe you want to make 5K every month, and you're aiming for 60K as your annual income. So what does that mean in terms of your social media goals? Well, if we break down this big goal, we have to ask ourselves, okay, so what do we have to do in order to achieve those 5K months? And obviously there's like a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that fit together to help us achieve this. But basically, we need to get more people to our website and buying our stuff. And if we say, okay, well then how do we achieve that? We use a social media strategy to get people, qualified people, to our website. So then if we look at, okay, how do we then take that kind of information and turn it into some really super simple social media goals? Like we said, we need to look at, okay, so what are you trying to achieve from your social media presence this year, this quarter, this month? You know, are you focusing on list building? Then if that's your focus, you're going to be providing valuable content on social media to build your know, like, and trust factor. You're going to be sharing links to freebies to try and turn your fans and followers into subscribers. And so this means that your social media goals are going to focus on the kind of more website views and more email subscribers type of goals. And the key here when you're setting your goals is, yes, we want to keep them simple, but we want to keep them super specific. So as an example, we want to say, okay, I want to double my Instagram following by the 31st of December, rather than just saying, I want more Instagram followers. Because the first one is measurable and it's achievable. And the second one is really nothing more than wishful thinking, and it's not going to get us the results that we want because there's no way for us to really measure it, and we're not going to know when we've achieved it. So just a little pro tip for you is we don't want to get too caught up in setting goals and spending, hours and hours on it. Remember, we want to keep things super simple. So again, take a step back and look at that big picture, look at what you're hoping to achieve this year, and then just break that down. Break it down into what that means for quarterly numbers, for monthly numbers, and for weekly numbers. And I just want to interject here with this quote from content marketer Andrew Davis. And it's one of my favorite quotes of all time to do with content, because it really shows how important content is, not just to our social media strategy, but to our kind of communication strategy in general. And he says, content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue. So remember, our big goal is more sales, but your social media goal is to drive people to your website. And like we've said, we do that by crafting that content that builds your know, like, and trust factor, and that shows your expertise. So if we think about it, we kind of switch the way that we think about things. Social media is the tool that helps you get to that big goal of more sales. And another way to put it is this quote from Zach Spuckler. And he says, okay, so business is simply content to leads to sales. And that's not to say that, you can't sell directly on social media. We totally can, but it's always a really good idea to err on the side of, giving more value than asking for a sale directly on social media, because as we've seen, content is all about building that relationship, and building that relationship is what then builds the trust that drives revenue, so that drives the sales. All right, so in the chat, we'd love to hear from you guys. So what are, say, 1 to 2 of your goals for social media? And remember, we want to keep them simple, and we want to keep them super specific. So, have some numbers associated with them, have a time frame associated with them. And yeah, if you just pop them in the chat, we would love to see some of your goals.
So, Brogan.
Okay, so yes.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, for myself, when you were talking about your goals, some of you might know the acronym SMART, and so that would help to keep your goals specific and measurable and actionable, and I'll have a timeline. So you guys can always Google SMART goals if you're having a hard time figuring out all the elements that you need to have in your social media goals. So I just wanted to quick drop that in. Sorry, Brogan.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that is a really good point. And it is a really great framework to, to design our goals. And, if you are kind of just starting to set some goals, like we've been saying, keep them really simple. And as long as you've got, a number associated with it. So like in the Instagram example, we said we want to double our following. And as long as we've got then a date associated with it, so we've got an end time frame. So in our previous example, the 31st of December, then that is going to be a goal that is, it's specific, it's measurable, and it means that once we actually achieve it, we can clearly tell that we're going to achieve it. And that's the kind of idea that we're looking at. All right, so yeah, you guys have got some great goals and you're keeping them simple and specific, which is really good to see. Okay, so I am just going to hand it back to Sarah, and she is going to give us a marketing crash course.
All right, hey everybody, it's Sarah again, and I'm doing a 2-part marketing crash course. First part, knowing your target audience, and then the second part is knowing how to talk to your target audience. And these are very simple things, but a lot of people skip over these basics, and it really impacts your sales. So that's why we're gonna quick delve into these. So the first part is your target audience. So who is your dream client? And for the bloggers here, who is your dream blog reader? Now, I don't want you to imagine, a stadium full of people. I want you to put all of those people together and imagine a single person that embodies your dream client or dream target audience member, your dream blog reader. And what we're going to do is a quick exercise. These are called user personas, and it's something that marketing people use, web designers use. It's really great for us to focus our message. So you'll want to think of the age, gender, location, work life, home life, and hobby. And depending if you make physical products, you could also add in their spending habits. Are they thrifty? Do they like to buy stuff? Are they an impulse buyer? How often do they buy? So you can add as many things as you want under here, but these are the basics. So this would be the example of a user persona. Her name is Sandra. I said that she's 31 years old. She is a female. She lives in the suburbs. She's an entrepreneur. She's self-employed. She's a fashion blogger and a consultant. And so that means she'll work some odd hours. She isn't set to the 9 to 5. She has some evenings and some weekend hours she's working. Her home life is pretty busy with entrepreneurial pursuits. And since she's a fashion blogger and she has lots of clothes, she also has a lot of fun organizing her closet and piecing together pieces for photo shoots. What she's going to do for fun, I imagine that she likes to go into the city to scout out new great places for photo shoots so she can put her photos up on Instagram. So that's Sandra, and this is a user persona. So when I would do marketing, and if my target audience member was a fashion blogger, this is who I would come up with. And so later on after this webinar, you can come back into the slides. This webinar will be available later. And I want you to go ahead and fill in your own user persona. So the second step to the user persona is figuring out where they are, because it doesn't matter. There's no, if you build it, they will come. If you build a website, it doesn't mean people are going to visit. If you put up an Etsy shop, it doesn't mean people are going to buy stuff. And if you build a business, that doesn't mean people are going to go into your shop. You need to be marketing where they naturally gravitate to be. So you need to start brainstorming where they would go. So for example, if I was trying to reach out to my target audience member, so if I was trying to reach out to Sandra, there's some places that I could find her and some other people like her. So for example, a photographer's convention. Sandra probably has the DSLR and takes really great fashion photos. So I imagine that she would be interested in photography events. She might be in a few Facebook groups for blogging and photography. She's probably definitely at some fashion events, and I should go there. And online, I imagine that she's on Instagram, blogging about her outfits and her shooting locations. And she's also on Pinterest because she's creating some great outfits and wardrobes. So when you're creating your user persona, once you figure out who the person is, and don't worry, this can be an imaginary person, you're just supposed to envision who the perfect dream client would be. And then you need to figure out where would they naturally go. And that is where you need to be marketing at. So the second part to your crash course is how to talk like a human. And it might seem like a very silly title to have, but it is so common that when we are talking to our best friends, we're able to tell them about our job, about the product that we're working on, or the blog post we just published. And then when we try and tell someone else about it, we sound like a robot. Like we just lost that humanity. And so I'm here to just give you a quick crash course in copywriting. And I want to let you know, writing copy is a lot like dating. For some of you, you're going to go, oh no. And some of you are going to go, amazing. Don't worry, it's all the good stuff. So what you need to remember is that you're building a relationship. So you're going back and forth with your audience and you're building up that trust, leading up to a moment where you ask them to make a commitment, in this case, a financial one. You're going to proverbially pop the question, and instead of, will you marry me, your question will be, will you buy this from me, or will you hire me? And just like when you're dating, if someone says, I love you on the first date, or like pulls a ring out of their pocket, that's like a lot of signs, very worrisome, like someone would leave. So remember, in this, you're building up a relationship, and then you make that big ask for their commitment. Another thing when you're writing copy is I want you to remember that even though it's your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, that, you know, you're so vain, you think these posts are about you, and it's not. It's got to always be about them, and it's going to be about how you live to help achieve their dreams, and it's how you'll always be there for them. So I want you to imagine that you're writing love letters to people when you're writing this content. Now, you don't have to put flowery language in it, but you just want to make sure you always hit the points of, in the end, is it about you or them? It should at least be 60% about them before you hit send. What are you doing to help them achieve their goals and their dreams? And are you consistent? And do you have this sense that, you know, solidarity, you're always going to be there for them? They'll never hire someone that they feel is there one moment and then will leave them for someone else or another project. So you need to have these three elements, and you say, Sarah, how can you get all of these three in 140 characters? You might not be able to hit all four, but the idea is your overall voice when you're using social media should hit all three of these elements. Now, on the next two slides, I have some examples of people that I personally followed that I absolutely love. So Ashley is a coach, and she also is a copywriter, and her copy is amazing. So this is one of her recent Facebook posts. Now, it might be a little difficult to read on the screen. So if you follow Ashley, this is her post from July 25th. It starts off with her talking about the difficulties of running a business and starting a business and changing your business mission. And it's, you know, it starts off with a story about her, but she does come into this, and then it does the switch. So you're interested in the story because you're like, oh man, that sucks, or I know how that feels. Then near the end, she's switching it, and you notice she goes from using I, first person pronouns, like, and then she switches to second person. She's saying, that's not your sign to throw in the towel, it's your sign to rise again, and she gives encouragement. So while she's sharing her own story, she's not saying, hey, I had a few bad business ventures, but now I'm amazing, look at me. She's sharing her story and showing her humanity in here, and also encouraging you to be a part of it and saying, learn from my story, you know, I'm rooting for you. So this is a beautiful way, just a beautiful way to put humanity into your social media posts and to build up that trust with your audience. Another person that I follow is on Instagram, and she is a fellow web designer. I also am a web designer. I wanted to quick grab this post. It's not as personal as Ashley's, but what I loved about it is she recently launched a product, and it has been featured quite a bit on her Instagram, but I've never once gotten sick of seeing it because of the way she talks about it. So in this example, instead of saying, hey, look at this wedding planner I made, look at these great pictures, it tells you how to set a table, I'm out, buy this. She says, I'm so thankful for the people that gave me insight to create this. The planning process has evolved, you know, I'm really thankful. She just quick drops the hashtag in there for this, and then that's it. She's not saying, go out and buy this, get this link. You know, she's talking about her journey into this and is inviting you to be interested in it. So this is another way that I thought was great, because imagine if I saw 10 of these over a 2-week period and I never once got sick of seeing it. That's great marketing, that I could see something again and again, and there's a different message every time. And it's always interesting, with Jen coming out with the perspective of thanking somebody for their help in it. That's just a great way to mention your product, get it in front of somebody, but not coming off as a robot, as the salesperson, coming off as someone you're building a relationship with. So that is your super quick crash course. Remember, I want you to envision who your target audience person is, or your dream client or dream blog reader. And then once you know where they're at, you need to start crafting a message, and that message needs to come from love and come from a relationship. Okay, and so now I'm going to bring this back to Brogan. She is now going to get back into the social media details.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thanks, Sarah. All right, so this is something that I strongly believe, and something that I preach all of the time, and that is that you do not have to be on every single social media platform under the sun, because blasting our message across as many social media platforms as possible, one is the quickest way to get us to burnout, and two, it trying to keep up with all that content is going to, again, as it leads us to burnout, means that, as Sarah was saying, and trying to throw all of that, that humanity and creating content that's a love letter. If there is a lot of content that you are creating, it's really difficult to keep up with that, and to ensure that all of the content you're creating for all of the social media channels that you're on is of that same quality and of that same humanity. And so that's why it's really important that you just pick a couple of platforms to focus on, and not think that you have to be everywhere all at once. So we want to keep it really super simple, okay? Because maybe you're doing this all on your own, or maybe you do have a VA, but maybe you don't. And the point is that you've got a limited amount of time. And on top of that, you've also got a business to run. We can't just waste all of this time on social media, because we are here for business. And as Sarah mentioned right at the start, we don't want to overcomplicate things. So what we want to do is pick a maximum of 2 to 3 social media platforms to focus on that suit our business goals, that suit our personality, and that they're the ones that we really enjoy being on as well. So before we move on into, working out how to pick the best platforms for us, I just want to interject with a quick little side note about personal versus business profiles, because this is a question that we get asked all the time, is that, okay, should I keep my personal and my business account separate? So the short answer is yes. And, if we think about platforms like Facebook, they don't actually let you use your personal account for business. It's against Facebook's terms and conditions to use your personal account for that purpose. And if we look at it the other way as well, it's like, okay, yeah, we do want to show our personality. We definitely want to show behind the scenes of our business, and maybe a bit of our kind of lifestyle, travel, and family. But it tends to be a bit more structured in the way that we share it in our business account than our personal account. So for instance, on your personal Facebook account, you wouldn't even think twice about sharing a picture of you and your pet. But on your business account, you need to make sure that it fits into your overall branding and strategy. So here's an example from the girls at Think Creative Collective. And in the photo is Emily, and she is in this post talking about her and her husband have just sold their house. She's sitting on the floor in her empty office with her dogs, basically on the verge of tears because this house has meant so much to her and it's filled with a lot of amazing memories. Now, if she just left it at that kind of post wouldn't really fit in terms of, sharing on their business account, which is what they've done both on Instagram and Facebook. It would be more of a kind of personal account post. But if you look at the section that's highlighted, and I'll read it out for you because it is a little bit hard to see. She says, not only does this house hold so many personal memories, but it's also the place where my hobby turned into a business, and that business led to an even bigger deal than I could ever have imagined. It's where I was able to work from home and memorize the way the light comes in every minute of the day. So not only is she sharing this, this personal story of how much, her house has meant to her, how much her home office has meant to her, she's putting it in the context of her business. And she's saying, okay, not only does it have all of these personal memories, but it's also got all of these links to the start of my business and the beginning of big things for her. So it's a really small tweak between what we share on our personal page. So if we think about it in terms of, this, what I've called this pro tip is on your personal account, you're just sharing. But on your business account, you're sharing with purpose and intention. So yes, it is like this, it's this really small tweak, but it makes a huge difference in how the content that you're sharing actually comes across to your audience. All right, so now we can move on to how do we figure out, if we're only focusing on 2 to 3 social media platforms, how do we figure out what are the best ones for you to use? So as the theme of this webinar is, we want to keep things really simple and we don't want to overcomplicate them. So it really boils down to 3 simple questions. And the first one is, do your dream clients or blog readers, if you're a blogger, hang out there and love it? So I know I'm kind of stating the obvious a little bit here, but you'd be surprised about how many people don't really consider this point. Are their dream clients hanging out there and do they love it? Because picking a social media platform isn't about just picking one that's in fashion or that everybody's talking about. This is about picking a platform that helps you reach your dream clients, okay? Because like we said before, we are in this for business. This is our social media account for business. It's to help us reach those who we're meant to serve. So the best way to figure out like what platforms they hang out on and whether they love it or not is as simple as asking them. You can email your list and ask them what social media platforms they love. You can ask questions in entrepreneurial Facebook groups that your dream clients hang out in, or you can even just, check in with previous clients and ask them. The bonus part here is the and love it section of this question, because we want to make sure that our peeps are not only just hanging out there, but that they absolutely love being on this social media platform. And what I mean by that is that they're checking in daily or multiple times a day, because if they're checking in daily or multiple times a day, you know that you have a higher chance of your content being seen and you have a higher chance of being actually able to interact with them. And so for most businesses and for most niches, Facebook is a really good example. Most niches have clients that will hang out on Facebook and who love to hang out there as well. All right, so the second question that we need to ask ourselves is just as important as the first one, and that's, do you love it? And this is really important because people can feel the energy that you bring to your content. And if you really don't want to be there, people are going to feel that. And what that's going to mean is that it's going to mean your engagement is lower. which means you'll get discouraged. Then you won't put as much effort into your content because, well, no one sees it anyway. Then your engagement will get even lower and the cycle just continues. So a quick note here is that when I say love it, I want to point out that there's still going to be days when you don't even want to look at social media. And that's completely normal. But what I'm talking about is, okay, most of the time, do you love being on this platform? You know, do you find it fun to log in and to engage with people there? Is it a platform that fits your personality? Does it fit your way that you like communicating? And that's a really important point to consider as well. And then the third question that we want to ask ourselves when deciding if a platform is right for us is, okay, can I sustainably produce the content that I need? So, your dream clients could absolutely love Twitter, and you could absolutely love Twitter. But if it leaves you feeling like this, completely drained and exhausted mess every time that you log in, then that's going to start you rethink everything, and you're going to wonder if it's worth it. And that's not what we want, because long term, it's not a sustainable approach. So just because social media is online doesn't mean that it doesn't take a lot of energy. And honestly, that doesn't really matter if you're an extrovert or an introvert. Creating content for social media is hard work, and it's the hardest kind of work for our brain because we're creating something out of nothing, and because we're, heart-centered business owners, we're also throwing a lot of our heart and soul into it. And the same is true for content for social media. So a pro tip here when, considering, okay, can I sustainably produce content and produce it consistently for this platform? You also want to remember to add in time and energy to actually engage with your community, because this is about remembering that, the social part of social media, because this isn't just about, posting or scheduling our content and then running. Because just because we schedule doesn't mean that we don't engage with people. And so it's really important to also consider setting aside time to reply to comments, to like other people's photos, and to share the love. So it's important to consider that time cost, if you like, in terms of, not just creating content, but also having that time and energy available to interact and engage with your community. All right, so we just covered a lot of info right there. So let's take a little bit of a quick break. And in the chat, we would love to hear what are the 2 to 3 maximum, and I am limiting you on 2 to 3 social media platforms that you are going to focus on right now in your business. And just as an example, so for me, I have, okay, just saw Sarah's response there. So Sarah is focusing on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, which is actually the same as what my focus is as well. All right, cool. So it looks like we've got a pretty good range of different platforms to focus on. Obviously, Facebook is always a biggie, and Instagram is showing up as well. All right, cool. Okay, all right, so let's move on and let's talk about boundaries. Okay, so do you guys know what I mean? So the endless scrolling and posting, jumping between 5 apps on your phone with at least 2 open at once, logging into Facebook just to check, and before you know it, it's like an hour later, you still haven't done your workout and you have absolutely no idea what's for dinner. So yeah, the struggle is totally real. And it doesn't have to be. And my not so secret weapon is boundaries. So here's a little bit of a pro tip for you. So how often do we hear things that are simple, yet we don't actually implement? You know, hearing that, that boundaries, creating boundaries for social media is so important, and that it can totally change the way that we look at social media, and in terms of our strategy and dealing with overwhelm, can seem really simple. But a lot of the time it's the simple things that, yeah, we hear them, but we don't often do them. And, yes, social media is fantastic for building relationships. It's really important for building our know, like, and trust factor. But we have to remember that, first and foremost, we're here for business. And if you used to work a 9 to 5, you probably, hopefully, had some boundaries set up. And maybe it was that you had, no email or social media after work hours, or that you only took on a certain number of projects at a time. And the idea here is that we can all be more intentional when it comes to our social media. So let's have a quick look at 2 really super simple ways that we can set boundaries for social media, because things can start to get a little bit skewed as we, when we start working for ourselves, because our business, because we love it so much and we love the work that we do and we love the clients, it can easily take over our life in a not so healthy way. And boundaries are really important because they exist for a really crucial reason. And that's that not only do they protect you, but they also set up expectations with your clients. So the first boundary that we're going to look at is setting business hours. So we need to have a look at, okay, are you going to be available at all hours of the day and night? Are you going to post on weekends? How quickly are you going to respond to comments? Because like we said before, if you used to work a 9 to 5 before starting your business, or maybe, you're still doing it now, if you've got a side hustle, you probably had set office hours, hence the term 9 to 5. And this can often get completely thrown out the window as we start our side hustle, or as we move into working for ourselves full time. But the truth is, these boundaries are just as important in our entrepreneurial lives as they were in our 9 to 5 days. And yes, hustle is really good and it's important, but it's also being seriously glamorized right now. And let's face it, we can't work all hours of the day and night. We can't be on social media 24/7 without burning ourselves out. Because no matter how much we love what we do, it's easy to see what happens when you burn the candle at both ends. And yeah, I'm speaking from experience here, totally guilty of that one. So on the next slide, I've just got an example for you of Heather Crabtree, who is a business mentor for entrepreneurs. And this is a post that she posted to Instagram. And she's just talking about, how she does set boundaries in her business, and especially around social media. So in the highlighted section, and I'll read it out for you just in case you can't see it very clearly, she says, "Usually I'm here talking about business as your business mentor, but I'm also a firm believer of having a business that fits into your life and not trying to fit your life into your business." And so this is just a way that, Heather clearly communicates to her audience that, boundaries are really important to her. And it shows that she really values not only her time and her energy, but it also sets up the expectation with her clients and shows, the kind of businesswoman that she is and the kind of relationship that people can have with her. All right, and the second way that we can set up boundaries for social media to help prevent burnout is to use our time wisely. And so we've all probably been caught up in the endless Facebook scroll. And, now that we've set our business hours, and we've worked out which platforms are the best for us, so we've picked those 2 to 3 that are going to be the best for our business, we need to then have a look at, okay, what activities do we need to do, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly on social media? And again, we also want to include that engagement time. So we want to include that time where we can answer questions, respond to comments, and find new accounts for us to engage with, whether that be mentors, colleagues, peers, or, potential clients as well. It's also about, building that kind of community feeling by sharing the content of others and engaging with our colleagues and peers. And this is so much easier as we're managing less social media accounts. It means that, we've got less time that we have to put into it. So pro tip for you is we want to start small in setting these boundaries, and we also want to create a system. So by starting small, I mean, maybe just try, not posting on weekends. Then you could try, okay, I'm not even going to look at social media on weekends. And it's a great idea to have a system set up. And this can be, as flexible or as strict as you need. So now we're going to go through just a really quick example of setting up a system for social media. And this is what a system for Instagram could look like, just so that you guys know what I mean. So if we look at the activities on Instagram that need to occur on a daily basis. So, okay, we need to post maybe once a weekday. Instagram depends. It depends on kind of like your audience, but usually anywhere between like 1 to 3 times a day is a really good amount. And of course, this is, you can, create this content much faster if you're batching it and then, scheduling it in something like Later or Hootsuite or Buffer. Then we also want to kind of, after we've posted, again, not doing that whole post and run scenario, we want to hang around for, maybe 10 minutes and just see kind of if any, what questions or what comments come in, and then just engage with people, kind of right after our post has gone live, after it's been posted. And this also has the added benefit of, boosting the engagement and getting our post seen by more people. Then we also want to spend, 5 minutes looking through new followers. And if their accounts interest you, then follow them back. If they don't, if they're not really relevant to your niche, if they're not relevant to your brand or your business, you totally don't have to follow them back. Like, I'm giving you permission. You don't have to follow people back just because they follow you. And then you also want to spend 5 minutes scrolling through some key hashtags that you use for your posts, and also the hashtags that your dream clients and customers use as well. So think about what, depending on what your niche is, like what are people searching for in this instance on Instagram? What kind of hashtags would they be scrolling through? And then, scroll through that as well and interact and engage with people. Then you also want to reply to any questions or comments that come throughout the day, or also responding on other people's posts as well. And then finally, you can also include screenshotting any photos that you come across that fit your brand. And this is really useful, especially if you don't see yourself as a photographer, and photography is not like a strong point or something that you don't have a lot of time for. What you can do is that Instagram has a really good culture of kind of being a community and sharing other people's content, as long, as you always give credit. So if you're scrolling through Instagram and you see photos that match your branding, that match your business, that match your messaging, screenshot it as you go. Make sure that you include the person's username in the screenshot so that you can always tag them afterwards. And so all of these activities, and this is just like a really simple system, a really simple setup of, these are the activities that I need to do every day on Instagram. You can get all of this done in about 20 minutes or less. And if you have to, set a timer, and you'll be surprised with how much that you can actually get done in a short amount of time. And, when you've got that timer ticking down and watching it. And not only does this keep you intentional, it keeps you focused, and it also helps you keep those boundaries set up where you're using your time really wisely and you're not, kind of just wasting time scrolling through lots of things and just getting caught up in the endless scroll. Okay, so we have covered an awful lot in this webinar today / tonight, depending where you are. So just a quick little recap. So here's what we've covered. We've looked at the number one issue that entrepreneurs face when trying to create their social media strategy, and that's that we always overcomplicate things. We've also looked at why and how it's important to start with that big picture, because it means that our social media goals are actually going to fit into our overall business goals. And we've also looked at why it's really important to clarify exactly who we're talking to so that we can attract our ideal audience. We've also looked at that being on all of the platforms is the fastest way to overwhelm and burnout. And we've also discussed the 3 questions to ask yourself so that you can pick the right social media platforms for you and your business. We've also looked at why being intentional about your goals means that, social media is actually going to help you achieve those big business goals. And we've also looked at why selling on social media is a lot like dating, and that we don't want to get too serious too soon. And then finally, we've just gone through the 2 simple ways to set boundaries for social media. So that's setting business hours and using our time wisely. And we've also looked at how to create a super simple system for social media that's going to save you time. And it also has the added benefit of, if you do want to outsource any activities, you've got it all documented so that it's easy to hand over to someone else if that's what you need. Okay, so hopefully you are thinking something like this. Whee! Now I have an awesome kick butt social media strategy. But you might also be thinking, okay, now I have to create all of this content for it. And I want to say that this response is completely 100% normal. And that if you would like some help, I've got a really special offer for you today / tonight. So I'm offering 10 free 30-minute creative content ideas brainstorming sessions with me for those who are either on the webinar live right now or who watch the recording while it's still available. And so why content brainstorming? Well, we've already established that content is really super important for building your know, like, and trust factor, and that it's just a necessary part of online business these days. But that doesn't mean that it has to be this really overwhelming process. And, a major theme of today's webinar is that we're saying no to being drained and exhausted and just a big mess. And so that's why I'm offering these free creative content ideas brainstorm sessions. Because this is really about you being seen as the expert in your niche, building your know, like, and trust factor, expanding your reach, and creating content that really serves your community. Because we all want to grow our following, our email list, and of course, our sales. So what could this session look like? Well, we could brainstorm some social media topic themes. We could create a content for your social media for the next 30 days. We could work through tips on how to structure your posts so they're more impactful. And we could also look at, okay, how can we work out what topics are really what our dream clients and customers actually want to see? So if this sounds like something that you could really use, and hey, did I mention that they're free? Remember that I'm only offering 10 spots, and it's over the next 2 weeks. So if you are interested, make sure that you secure yours now. So you can follow this bit.ly link, so bit.ly/creative content brainstorm, and also make sure that you kind of use the capitals because you need the capitals in the bit.ly link. And when you go to this link, over the next couple of slides, I'm just going to show you kind of the step you through the process of what you're going to see to book in. And Sarah's just popped that link in the chat for you as well. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so when you go to that link, you're going to be taken to a page that has my calendar. And in that drop-down menu, you're just going to select your time zone and then hit the orange Set Time Zone button. Then you're going to pick a date that suits you over the next 2 weeks. Then select a time and hit that orange Continue button. And then you're just going to fill out your details, and we're going to have this session over Skype. So make sure that you include your Skype username as well. And then just click the orange Complete Appointment button down the bottom, and it's all done. You locked into my calendar. So if you really want to get serious about creating content for your social media, especially now that you have an awesome kick-butt social media strategy, then head on over to bit.ly/creative content brainstorm and book your free session now. And like I said, Sarah's popped that link in the chat for you, so you can access it there as well. All right, so we've got a little bit of time left over. So if you guys have any questions for us, you can pop them in the chat and we can A your cues.
Yeah, and we'll just see if we have any questions from anyone who just finished the webinar. And the question can be on anything that we covered, and you can even ask the big questions as well. If you have super big strategy questions, I really recommend that you grab one of those free spots, because you'll have 30 minutes to have an answer by an expert, by Brogan. But if you have any follow-up questions that you want to pop into our Q&A, there's a Q&A function into our chat. We've seen a couple of you use that when you were answering our hit the chat questions. So we'll wait a little bit more to see if we have any questions. But while we wait, Brogan, do you want to talk a little bit more about what you do outside creative content brainstorming sessions?
Yes, so basically, like, anything to do with content strategy is really my jam. And so basically what that means is I really focus on helping you get your message out of your head and to the people who really need it. So to the dream clients, so like we went through today in that, kind of the user persona, it's really about helping you craft the content that's going to help you reach those people who really need your help. And so I focus on, kind of a couple of key areas in content strategy and communication, because communication is such an epically huge area. So I tend to focus on helping people either just get their content sorted for social media or for their blog. So I also have strategy sessions that, help you brainstorm ideas for blog content if you don't have enough ideas, or also helping people who have too many ideas and helping them get kind of really strategic about, okay, what is the best areas to focus on right now for your content, and what is going to give you, kind of the best results in reaching the people that you need to. And then I also help people kind of with the whole overview of content and communication strategy. So if it's something that, you know, you're really keen to kind of knuckle down on and get sorted, then I help people kind of go through that whole process of setting up their whole strategy and of tying in all of the different communication pieces. So tying in, you know, social media and blogging, then looking at whether, you know, things like webinars and live trainings are going to be a part of your strategy, and just helping you make sure that, one, you're not kind of just trying to do all of the things all at once, but as we've been talking about today, you know, trying to help you pick the best decisions for your business right now, and helping you be just a little bit more strategic with your time and also with the content that you create.
All right, Brogan, just one quick question, and I know we're running a little late, so viewers, it's 9 o'clock. If you need to pop off, that's fine. We're just going to quick answer this question before we go. What are some examples of goals other than website traffic? And so for myself, while you're talking, I was able to think up some ideas. One of the questions is something other than increasing website traffic. You were talking about earlier, increasing your Instagram followers. That would be a great goal, because if you hit a certain level of influence on Instagram, you can start working on partnerships and sponsorships through Instagram. And so if your goal would be, hey, I'm hoping to bring in some affiliates or to create sponsorships, one of your goals could be increasing your social media presence on Instagram. If you have a huge following, people will be more interested in working with you and partnering with you on those services. Brogan, can you think of some other non-go-to website goals that people can use with social media?
Yeah, so like we were talking about, you know, right at the start, is that it's always about taking that step back and going, okay, so what is my kind of big business goal this year? And often that is to do with sales. And so that's why we kind of looked at those, you know, we set those goals about, you know, increasing website views and website traffic. And obviously we do always want to try and increase sales. But other big goals that we could have is, you know, maybe you are really focusing on list building now. So the kind of goals that you could create, it could still be about, you know, increasing your website views if you've got, you know, kind of like content upgrades or opt-ins on a blog post. So you're getting people to your site and then getting them on your email list that way. Or you could, you know, be wanting to increase your following so that you've got, as you said, like, you know, more of that influence. And also too, then you've got, when you're sharing freebies like directly on social media, you've got more people who can actually interact with that content and, you know, sign up kind of directly from social media. Another kind of goal, so generally there's 4 different types, and we have kind of covered most of them. So, you know, increasing your following is kind of the first type. And as we already spoke about, you know, if you're looking to kind of increase your influence, if it's something like Instagram and you're looking at doing kind of strategic partnerships, then that's a really good idea. Or you could also be wanting to increase, you know, your following just to show, you know, to show your expertise and to show that, okay, like I'm someone who knows my stuff. We've already talked about the second type, which is, you know, increasing website views. We've also then briefly mentioned the third type, which is increasing your email subscribers. So again, you can either do that directly on social media, or you can drive the traffic to your website or to a lead page or a landing page and capture them that way. And then the fourth type is you can also have kind of like more sales as a goal. So you can, like we said, you do want to kind of focus on giving more than you're asking for a sale on social media, but you can definitely have a goal about, okay, you know, I want to sell X number of products. Maybe it's a digital product or it's a physical product, or it could even be a service if you're a service provider. You know, I want to sell X number of products on Facebook, you know, this quarter. You can totally have that kind of goal as well, especially if you have already, you know, kind of built that community and they're used to hearing from you and they're used to kind of receiving a lot of value from you, then it kind of fits. It fits a little bit better. It's kind of like that aspect that Gary Vaynerchuk talks about in his book, you know, jab, 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 right hook. It's like, as long as you're giving that value, which is those the jabs, then when it comes to that right hook, people are kind of not just going to flinch back and be like, oh, like, you know, too much too soon. Like, why are you asking me to buy things? If you've already built that relationship, it kind of just feels like this really natural kind of next step in your relationship.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Brogan. All right, everybody, we are going to stop the webinar now. We hope that you have a great morning if you're like Brogan and you are over in Australia, and we hope you have a great night if you're with me over here in North America. All right, bye guys.
See you guys.